Let's take a look at Conor McGregor's most recent UFC embarrassment and see if we can learn anything from it. As most of you probably know, Conor McGregor lost to Max Holloway at UFC 329 on Saturday, July 11th in the first round. He lost just 69 seconds into the round after doing this for his opening move. Now, far be it from me to criticize a professional MMA fighter who has multiple wins under his belt. I am just a lowly personal trainer who does strongman in his free time. But I've never seen this happen before, especially after not fighting for as long as he did, but more on that in a second. As I said, I'm not an MMA fighter myself. I'm not even that big of an MMA fan, to be honest, but I have trained athletes and compete in strength sports myself. So I do have a little bit of experience when it comes to talking about training for performance and training for athletics. Conor McGregor's 38 years old. Scratch that. He's 37 years old, but he'll probably be 38 by the time you're watching this video. He's only 2 years older than I am. And he hasn't fought a match in the UFC in 5 years. And he hasn't won a match in the UFC since before COVID. There's this thing in exercise science called the principle of specificity. Essentially, what the principle of specificity states is that your body adapts to the specific demands in which you impose on it. Now, Conor McGregor has not been imposing his body, as far as I can see, to the demands of what would be required to be competitive at the highest level for quite a while now. He has also allegedly been doing sort of some things like snorting cocaine and getting indicted and convicted of sexual assault that are not going to help you when you're getting in the ring. Again, I'm not a professional athlete, but this is just my guess. And here's the deal. I don't know for sure if this is the case with Conor, but as someone who's been training people for over 10 years, if you have a young athlete who's pretty gifted and makes a lot of progress very quickly, sometimes those athletes assume that they will be able to continue to make that level of progress forever. So they never learn how to train properly, how to recover properly once they get into their 30s, 40s, and later, and stuff like this happens. Again, principle of specificity. You need to impose certain demands on your body in order for your body to adapt to it. In addition to this, there's also this thing called the stress, recover, adapt cycle. You stress your body recovers, and then it adapts. Problem is, when you're really young and you just beat the shit out of yourself, you can recover really quickly. The recover and adapt part of the cycle happens quicker, and the stress part of the cycle, you can hit yourself with more stress essentially and recover from it quicker. But as you get older, it goes in the opposite way. You need to really carefully titrate the amount of stress that you're putting yourself under to make sure that it's not too much that your body can't adapt to it in the given frame of time. If I train on Monday and I'm going to be training squats heavy, and next Monday I'm going to be squatting heavy again, I got to make sure that I'm fully recovered, if not stronger, the following Monday than I was this Monday in order to potentially make some strength progress. And this basic concept holds true in basically any sport or any athletic endeavor or any part of the fitness space, that you need to be able to recover and adapt to the demands of training within a reasonable amount of time. If this doesn't happen, you're constantly coming back into your training sessions feeling sore, achy, hurt, painful, etc. You'll hear so many people in their 30s complain about feeling like this all the time. Part of it is aging, but part of it is also not having good training protocols. If Conor's still sparring and training like he did when he was 25, it's quite unlikely that that's going to be optimal, or he's going to be recovering from that effectively. Even knowing this, again, not being a pro MMA fighter or a combat sports person myself, I have trained a few people who do different martial arts, and lots of times the training that is entailed within these martial arts is not really, how shall I put this, smart. What they'll end up doing is they'll end up just running themselves ragged, doing a bunch of random shit, and then put that in the pile of conditioning. A lot of times they'll ignore doing strength training, which is really your base that you should be doing, and then they'll end up overtraining in all these things that actually would be better trained by getting more mat time. right? So they'll end up doing hours and hours of cardio and supersets and circuits and stuff, neglecting their basic heavy weight training, not recovering from that stuff. And then they get out on the mat and they're not spending as much time doing that as they should. When in reality, the thing that's going to make you best at your sport, again, this holds true in every single sport, is practicing that sport. The more reps you get, the more experience that you get doing specific movement patterns relating to the specific endeavor that you're doing, the better. Some coaches will take this entirely the wrong way, and they will have their athletes do things like, oh, I'm gonna have you punch with a band as resistance, or I'm gonna have you kick with weights on your leg. We do have data on some of this stuff. Usually when we add load to a movement pattern that's athletic in a sport, what it ends up doing is actually fucking up your technique, while simultaneously that load not actually being large enough to generate muscle adaptations. This is why what we wanna do, what's a better idea, is do your heavy basic strength lifts to build your foundation, and then get the majority of your conditioning from actually practicing the sport, because it's also going to double as a skill thing. Like, it's going to make you better at the skill of doing that sport on top of conditioning you specifically to do that sport. It's actually very, very simple. But anyway, having not fought in 5 years and being in his mid to late 30s, he's not in top shape anymore. You got stuff like this that's happening, and the absolutely wild decision to try and open the fight like that. Now, I know as someone who's competed in strength sports, sometimes you get really nervous when it comes competition day and you just do something really stupid. Like you try and rush through your lifts would be the equivalent to this, or you just try some brand new technique that someone just taught you that day on whatever lift you're competing at, and you fuck it up really badly, right? Or you have this idea in your mind of how things are supposed to go or feel, and it just doesn't work out that way. So I understand sometimes this stuff just happens, but other times it's crackhead behavior. Max Holloway has fought in, what was it, like 8 matches since Conor had his last one? To me, again, knowing what I know about exercise science, the principle of specificity in training, if I see 2 athletes, if I can be assumed that both of them are reasonably recovered and one of them just has way more recent experience than the other, if they're around the same level, I'm going to take that athlete 9 times out of 10 in any sport. So what can we learn from this that can actually help you in your training? Well, first of all, the things I said about principle of specificity, those things hold true regardless of whether or not you're an MMA fighter or even an athlete of any kind. You can use specificity in your training to build the muscles you want to build the strength you want to build, and even as you age and get older, to stay healthy. Because think about it, some of the things that old people have problems with are things like getting up and down off a seat. You know what trains that? Oh baby, look, it's a squat. Picking stuff up off the top shelf, you know what trains that? Oh great, it's overhead press time. Picking something up off the floor, guess what? You gotta do a deadlift. Training for age and training for performance are actually the same thing. If you ever read Jonathan Sullivan's book, The Barbell Prescription, he mentions in there and consistently says in his podcasts and other material the concept of an athlete of aging. That is, that we are all athletes and our sport is aging. We're all fighting against it, and the best way to do this is with exercise, specifically argued in this book, strength training, which I would mostly agree with. If you want to be healthy and you want to stay strong as you get older, you must and you should strength train. And you don't need to do things wildly out of the ordinary. In fact, the basics work really, really well. In fact, probably better than things far outside that realm. You just need to recover and get experience. You need to do the thing, you need to recover from the thing, you need to let your body adapt, and you need to get reps under the bar. If you want to be good at squats, you got to squat more. If you want to be good at overhead press, you got to overhead press more. If you want to be good at wrist curls, you got to wrist curl more. And if you want to be good in the octagon, you got to not spend 5 years doing crack, rape a girl, get convicted of sexual assault, don't let yourself recover, and then come into the octagon, do this wild crackhead kick and fuck your leg up 2 seconds into the first round. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth.